Hello everyone. Today I'm going to tell you a story. A story not about a person who went missing, but about a person who was never missing at all. It's a tale of secrets buried deep, believed to have vanished into thin air, until a surprising DNA test brought everything to light. This story is not just a family tragedy, but a reflection of the truths we hold, the people we love, and the lengths we will go to protect our secrets. Listen closely, because every detail, no matter how small, can completely change what you think you know. Clara Vance, a woman with neatly tied chestnut hair, spent most of her life arranging old books in her town's small public library. Her life was quiet and gentle, shaped by an absence. The absence of her older brother, Leo, who had vanished exactly 25 years ago. Leo wasn't just any boy. He was a football star, a teenager full of energy, always the center of attention. He had a radiant smile and a free spirit, always craving adventure. One sweltering summer day, after a small argument with their father, he left the house. That was the last time they saw him. Since then, Leo's image only existed through blurry photos and stories told in her mother's choked-up voice. Clara's mother, a gentle but mysterious woman, never truly got over the pain. She kept everything of Leo's, from his old jacket to his football trophy and his scribbled birthday cards. Clara grew up in that space, in that pain, in that haunting absence. When her mother passed away a few months ago, a part of that grief was finally laid to rest. Clara had to face a difficult task, cleaning out her mother's house. The house was filled with memorabilia, with ghosts of the past. In a dusty, cobweb-covered corner of the attic, she found an old wooden box. The box had no name on it, nothing special. When she opened the lid, a scent of old paper and time-faded fabric wafted out. Inside were things that seemed meaningless. A few old love letters from her parents, a photo of a strange man with her mother when she was young. But two things made her stop dead in her tracks. The first was a baby blanket, knitted from a light blue yarn. It was a simple blanket, but Clara knew it wasn't hers, nor was it Leo's. Her mother had once told her about Leo's blanket, a special one with a teddy bear embroidered on it. This blanket was different. And the second thing, lying right under the blanket, was a yellowed piece of paper. It was a birth certificate. The name on the paper was Leo Vance. The date of birth made Clara's heart pound. It was October 28, 1978. Clara remembered very clearly her brother, Leo, was born in 1977. He was 3 years older than her. This birth certificate was dated exactly 1 year after the Leo she knew was born. What was happening here? An icy shiver ran down her spine. She had always thought she understood her family. She had spent her whole life mourning a brother, but these items told a different story. She carried the birth certificate and the blanket downstairs, her heart racing. She turned the paper over and over, staring at the name Leo Vance and the wrong birth date. It had to be a mistake, right? Or was it a horrifying secret? Her curiosity turned into an obsession. She decided to do something she never thought she would. She went online and searched for a DNA test kit. Initially, her intention was simple: to learn about her family lineage, to see if there were any clues about Leo. She ordered the kit, received it, carefully took a cheek swab, and sent it in. In the days she waited for the results, she tried to push her curiosity aside. She convinced herself that it was probably just a printing error. Or maybe her mother had bought that blanket for a friend, and the birth certificate belonged to someone else. A few weeks later, late one evening, as she was reshelving old books in her living room, a notification email arrived. "Your DNA results are ready." She took a deep breath and clicked. Everything was normal at first. Details about her ancestors, where her grandparents had lived. But then, there was another section. A section she hadn't expected. One titled Close Relatives. Below it, a name appeared. Daniel Hughes. And next to that name, the words that turned Clara's world upside down. Full sibling. A full sibling? But she only had one brother, Leo, and he had been missing for 25 years. Who was Daniel Hughes? What was going on? And then, she realized the most horrifying thing. If this person was her full sibling, what about Leo, The one she grew up with, the one she had mourned for a quarter of a century? Did that mean that Leo, her brother, wasn't her biological brother? Or did it mean that Leo was never missing at all? She stared at the screen, a sense of dread and confusion washing over her. The truth, it seemed, had been buried in the shadows for 25 years, and it was just beginning to reveal itself. And it was nothing like she had ever imagined. All that night, Clara couldn't sleep. She kept flipping through the old birth certificate and staring at the computer screen. Full sibling. Those words were etched into her mind like a sharp blade. The truth she had believed for so long had collapsed. Leo, her beloved brother, who held all their childhood memories, who she had mourned for years, now had another full sibling. What did this mean? Did it mean she and Leo didn't share a father? Or a mother? Or was there a terrible secret being hidden? In a moment of despair, she thought about deleting the entire account and forgetting it all. But her curiosity, and more than that, the pain of being lied to, was stronger. She clicked on Daniel Hughes' profile, a 26-year-old man, living in a small town about 2 hours' drive from her. He had a profile picture, a face that looked vaguely familiar, with deep-set eyes and wavy brown hair, a strange, uncanny resemblance to old photos of her brother Leo, but a younger, slightly more rugged and weathered version. With a trembling hand, Clara sent a message. "Hi, I'm Clara Vance. I see that we are full siblings. Can you tell me your story?" She didn't expect a reply. She thought he would think she was a lunatic. But the next morning, a new notification appeared. "I saw the results too. I don't know what to say. I was adopted." Clara's heart sank. Adopted. The boy she knew as Leo disappeared. The boy named Daniel was adopted. There was an invisible but certain thread connecting all these pieces together. After a few back-and-forth messages, they agreed to meet at a small coffee shop between their two towns. When Clara walked in, she instantly recognized Daniel. He was sitting at a small table in the corner, holding a coffee cup, his eyes anxiously scanning the room. His face held a certain melancholy, but when he smiled, a familiar wrinkle appeared at the corner of his eye, just like the one in Leo's old photos. Clara approached, and as they looked at each other, a strange feeling washed over them. Not the recognition of a sibling, but the recognition of a hidden truth. They talked for hours. Daniel told his story. He was adopted as a newborn. His adoptive parents, a kind but private middle-aged couple, always told him that his birth mother was a young woman who couldn't care for him. They had given him a good life, but Daniel always felt a piece was missing. He had no memory of his life before being adopted. His birth certificate was the one Clara had found, the name Leo Vance, with the birth date of October 28, 1978. Clara took out the blue wool blanket. "Do you know this?" Daniel looked at the blanket, a flicker of familiarity in his eyes. "I'm not sure, but I have an old photo in my adoption papers. It has this blanket in it too." He reached into his wallet and pulled out a faded photo. In the picture was a young woman, who looked similar to Clara's mother, holding a newborn baby wrapped in the blue wool blanket. Her face was full of sorrow but also a strange determination. Daniel looked at Clara, his eyes full of confusion. Is this your mother?" The truth was beginning to reveal itself. Clara and Daniel realized they weren't just siblings. Daniel, the person she was sitting across from, was the boy who had once been known as Leo. But why were there two Leos? And why did her parents give him away? Clara recalled the fragmented details of the story of Leo's disappearance she had heard. Her parents always said that Leo ran away after an argument. They never said he was lost or kidnapped, just ran away, and they never went into detail about that argument. Every time Clara asked, her father would sigh and her mother would change the subject. That silence now wasn't grief, but a cover-up. Together, they decided to return to Clara's house, where the secrets had been buried. They searched every corner, flipped through every notebook, every old diary. They didn't find any explanations, but they did find a small journal. Inside was not a diary, but a ledger. In it, there were notes on living expenses, but interspersed between the numbers were names and dates, written in a hurried hand. One name stood out, Leo S., and an old date, and another name, St. Anne's Hospital, with a date a year later. St. Anne's Hospital. That was where Daniel was born. And who was Leo S.? A truth was slowly coming to light, a story more complex than anything they could have imagined. The story wasn't about a missing brother, but about two brothers, two identities, and a terrifying secret. This story wasn't just a pain, but a cruel riddle that forced them to face a heartbreaking truth. The appearance of Daniel had turned Clara's peaceful world upside down. The pain of her brother's loss had become a great unanswered question, and those questions seemed to be tearing apart the pieces of her life. St. Anne's Hospital and the name Leo S. in her mother's old ledger had become the only clues. Clara and Daniel decided they had to confront the only living person who could answer their questions. Clara's father. They found him sitting on the porch, lost in silence, smoking a cigarette. He was a stoic man, his eyes holding a deep sorrow that had lasted for decades. Clara found it difficult to start the conversation. "Dad, I found a few things," she said, her voice trembling. She held out the birth certificate and Daniel's old photo. Her father stared at them, his eyes widening in shock, then slowly turning into a look of profound fear. He knew what those things were. He knew what they meant. He knew what had been buried was about to be exposed. In a long moment of silence, he didn't say a word. Then he began to cry, tears streaming down his deeply lined face. I'm so sorry," he said, his voice choked. "I kept it hidden for so long." And then, the horrifying story was revealed, little by little. A story not about one, but about two sons. Clara's father explained that, before he married her mother, she had a brief relationship with another man. That man was a wanderer, a free-spirited artist, who came and went from the town mysteriously. He had left when her mother discovered she was pregnant. The grief and shame led her to keep the secret. She gave birth to a son and named him Leo. That boy was Leo S. In the journal, Leo S. was short for Leo Sinclair, the father's last name. Later, Clara's mother met her father, and he accepted the boy as his own son. They raised Leo together, but he was always a difficult child, rebellious and stubborn. He felt like he didn't belong, like a stranger. The argument on that fateful summer day wasn't a random event. It was the explosion of years of tension, of pent-up emotions. Leo S. ran away and he never came back. Clara's parents tried to find him, but they couldn't. They felt tormented by shame and pain, not daring to admit the truth to anyone, not even to Clara. So they lied, saying Leo was missing, hoping that time would heal the wound. But the story didn't end there. About a year later, Clara's mother discovered she was pregnant again. This time it was their son. They gave birth to a healthy baby boy, naming him Leo. However, the emotional wound from the disappearance of Leo S. was still raw. They felt too much pain, too much fear to raise another son. A son who would bring back painful memories of the one they lost. So, in a desperate and heartbreaking decision, they gave the baby up for adoption to another family. That baby was Daniel. Clara listened to the story, her whole body numb. The brother she grew up with, the brother she loved, the one who had vanished, was not her biological brother. She had only one biological brother, Daniel. And the brother she had mourned for a quarter of a century, Leo S., had truly gone missing. It turned out her parents had created a lie on top of a lie, a cycle of secrets to hide their pain and shame. In an attempt to protect their family, they had caused another tragedy, one that lasted for 25 years. Clara looked at Daniel, who was also stunned. He had found his birth parents, but the story about them wasn't a beautiful one. It was a story of a painful choice, of wounds that never healed. Everything they knew, everything they believed, was just a lie. And now, the truth was exposed, more painful and cruel than they had ever imagined. After the truth was exposed, the silence in the room was heavier than ever. It wasn't the silence of a cover-up, but the silence of grief, of brokenness. Clara's father, A man who was once so strong now looked like a ghost. He explained that Clara's mother had felt too guilty, too ashamed to tell the truth. She wanted to bury the past, and he, out of love and compassion, agreed. He had hoped that time would heal everything, but he was wrong. That lie had become an indelible scar, not just for them, but for Clara and Daniel too. Clara looked at Daniel. They had a new bond, a bond forged by a tragic story. She had lost one brother, but she had found another, her biological sibling. Daniel, who grew up not knowing his origins, now had to face a reality more complex than anything he had ever imagined. His birth parents hadn't abandoned him because they couldn't care for him, but because of a pain too great, a tragedy that had eaten away at their souls. This story doesn't end there. The final piece of the puzzle is still missing. The brother who truly went missing. Leo Esta, the rebellious boy who ran away in anger. Where did he go? Is he still alive? Clara's father only remembered a few fragmented details. Leo S. once had a best friend named Michael who moved away at the same time, and he had once talked about going to California to find himself. Clara and Daniel realized they had a new mission. They had to find Leo S. Not to judge, not to punish, but to find answers, to bring peace to themselves and to their aging father. They began searching for information about Leo S.'s old friend, poring over old school records. They found an old photo in a yearbook, where Leo S. stood with Michael, both with bright, hopeful smiles. They haven't found Leo S. yet. The story is still unfinished. Maybe he started a new life somewhere, no longer remembering his painful past. Or perhaps his fate was more tragic. But what's important is that Clara is no longer alone. She has Daniel, and Daniel has a family. They lost one brother, but they found each other. The pain from the terrible secrets is no longer a silent burden. It has become a thread that binds them together. Life isn't always simple, is it? Sometimes the secrets we try to bury are the very things that define us. The story of Clara and Daniel is a reminder that the truth, no matter how painful, is better than a sweet lie. It teaches us that family is not just made of blood, but of honesty, courage, and acceptance. And sometimes we have to lose one brother to find another, and to find ourselves. This is an unbelievable story, but it is true. And it makes us wonder, are there secrets hidden in our own families? Secrets that will be revealed, because the truth, like an underground river, will sooner or later find its way to the light. If this story has touched you, if you want to join us in uncovering the mysteries and truths about people, remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any more stories. We'll be back with more thrilling and moving tales, stories that can change the way you see the world.